welcome to Subject to Interpretation, a podcast which takes us deep into the topics that matter most to professional interpreters. I'm your host, Maria Ceballos Wallis. Welcome. So we're back in our third season this year, celebrating the 25th anniversary of the De la Mora Institute of Interpretation. In our regular series, which airs monthly, we will continue to tackle issues of relevance to interpreters, bringing in new guests in every episode. We will be covering topics such as advocacy, mental health, and ethics with multi-part episodes. So today we begin with our first episode on advocacy for and by interpreters. To discuss this topic and its cousin, lobbying, we have invited two guests to speak with us about their advocacy efforts through APTI, the American Alliance of Professional Translators and Interpreters. We are pleased to have with us the current president and co-founder of APTI, Esther M. Hermida, who is a California and federal court certified interpreter. Esther has been a freelance interpreter and a small agency owner for 30 years. She belongs to 4 professional associations and believes in the power of associations to influence and support the profession. Welcome, Esther.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me here.
Well, it's wonderful to have you here. We are also excited to welcome Vice President, Legislative Chair, and co-founder of APTI, Angie Birchfield. Angie is a California certified Spanish interpreter who works as an independent contractor in both the public and private sectors. She has been an advocate for the profession since 2003. Angie is also a member of the Judicial Council Advisory Committee and was instrumental in the law that required court-certified interpreters to show ID when covering courts and depositions in California. Welcome, Angie.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, before we begin, let's talk about what advocacy is. One definition of advocacy defines it as any action that speaks in favor of, recommends, argues for a cause, supports or defends or pleads on behalf of others. Now, there are 3 types of advocacy. There's self-advocacy, individual advocacy, and systems advocacy. So briefly, tell me what APTI is and what is the involvement of APTI in advocacy for interpreters?
Well, APTI actually works to promote the professionalization and advancement of translators and interpreters by lobbying and advocating for public policy that benefits the communities that we serve and the language professionals. I just gave you our mission statement. Our hope is that these policies would help increase opportunities for translators and interpreters to make a positive impact on the local communities where they interpret, help improve the quality of language services available to the public. In other words, meaningful language access.
So I've read somewhere that while all lobbying is advocacy, not all advocacy is lobbying. So tell us the difference between the two in the mission statement that in the mission of for APTI.
Well, advocating for one's profession is important. That's what members can do. Professionals can do that. You can go to your legislators and advocate for your position. And a lobbyist actually advocates in legislators, their strategic advocacy. That's what lobbying does. And that's what the lobbyist ultimate goal is, strategic advocacy. That's the definition of a lobbyist. So they know exactly who to approach, what to do, how to talk to legislators, how to influence them. They work in the Capitol, they work with legislators, they're friends with many of them because they know the laws, they know how the system works, while we, the citizens, may not be too familiar, but obviously the legislators work on behalf of their constituents.
So when APTI was deciding what its mission was going to be, how did you determine what was most important to interpreters in your area? What kind of advocacy was required? What kind of lobbying? Did you do roundtables? Did you have discussions with interpreters on different subjects?
What we did with AB5 was we advocated for the profession as individuals, as smaller groups. Our aim was to get an exemption, a carve out. We were successful or partially successful, but we learned a lot. We learned that we needed to defend ourselves. We had the tools now because we know now how the system works. It was decided that the best way to approach the profession, to protect the profession, is to hire a lobbyist. Why? As I mentioned, I think in the interview before, one of our colleagues shows up to Sacramento to speak on behalf of his association, and they say, "Who's your lobbyist?" So we know that they expect, if we are going to be taken seriously, we really need to be represented by somebody out there. So our name could be, our profession can be respected, our name could be in everybody's mind when something happens that affects the language access, or maybe laws like this that we did not know that it was going to happen. A lobbyist would know about it because they track bills and they know who to talk to. So all those things was discussed. We had meetings, and we knew that we needed a lobbyist to represent the profession, period.
And for those viewers and listeners who are not familiar with AB5, you and I did do an interview about a year and a half, perhaps a little more, regarding your efforts, the efforts of APTI, and the efforts of a lot of interpreters in California regarding AB5. But give us in a nutshell the overview of what is AB5 and why it was deemed to be threatening to interpreters, so much so that it required you interpreters in California to begin to take action.
AB5 was a law that was created to protect misclassified workers. After a Supreme Court decision, it was codified, and we didn't know about it until it was actually voted at the legislative level, at the assembly level. We decided to go in and bring it to people's attention that they had the three steps or three prongs that affected us. One of them did, which means that you cannot work with somebody if they're in the same business as you are. Language service companies are in the same business. In other words, we can work for them, but as employees. And we decided, no, we're not employees of companies that hire our services for our expertise. That's what they're there for. We did fight it. The Assemblywoman, Lorena Gonzalez, actually agreed and decided to give us a carve out, a full carve out for translators, because they don't have to go on location while we do have to go into the end client's place of business. And so we got a partial carve out. Maybe Angie can explain a little bit more about that portion as well.
Yes, if I may, basically the difference between the language service provider and the interpreters that provide interpreting services is more in alignment with a referral agency and a contractor that contracts through the referral agency, because for the most part, that's what a language service provider, I will use the acronyms LSP for language service providers. So the LSPs are basically working as a intermediary to connect the interpreter with the client that needs the services. So what this law was not clarifying was how that relationship would work. So we were successful in being able to convince the authors of the bill that there is a difference between the LSP and the interpreter, and that we weren't really in the same business, because the LSP does not provide German interpretation, Russian interpretation as an individual owner, right? So they're looking for someone who can provide that type of service that is in a variety of different languages, if that makes sense.
So once you determined that lobbying was the way to go, what were you able to accomplish with all of your efforts?
Well, through the efforts that we were, making, we were able to connect with the lobbyist that represents APTI at this time. He was successful in being able to assist us with our communications through Lorena Gonzalez's office, as well as the state Senate leader's office. And we were able to get language into the bill that they were creating to amend AB 5 so that it would include our profession as well as a few others. So that is what we were able to achieve through the lobbying effort.
So at the time, APTI didn't really exist, despite the fact that you had all banded together to address this problematic issue for interpreters.
Exactly. So what we were able to use was I had a connection through the state Senate leader's office, and because of other lobbying efforts that I had been involved in prior to APTI's existence. So that connection was very important for us to be able to convince the right people that we needed this type of an adjustment to the law.
Okay. When did all of this coalesce so that the organization was formed?
This happened 2 years ago, actually. We're going to have our 2-year anniversary in February. And so we decided to create an organization. We didn't know. We were getting together, we were brainstorming, we were figuring out what to do. We knew we needed to create something to get a lobbyist to work for us and on behalf of the profession. And we just decided to brainstorm, contacted an attorney so he can do the incorporation. We knew that we needed to lobby, so we got a 501c6 organization, which represents, it would be the equivalent of a chamber of commerce, that you represent the whole profession and you advocate and or lobby on their behalf.
So APTI didn't exist during the time where you were battling against AB 5, but basically all of the elements that are incorporated in APTI seem to have all come together under this now corporate entity, right?
Yeah, I like to think so. We started a grassroots effort. We worked every day. We got to know a lot of people, and everyone was working in their own little groups. And then all of a sudden we created this video meeting where everyone just about was invited to talk about what they did. And it was after that we decided, hey, why don't we get together and do this? So all of that was very helpful, because we already knew what to do. It was just like the right thing to do. We knew how the legislative process worked. We knew how to approach the right channels, and we needed to amplify that through an organization that actually was created so we could be taken seriously.
I think that what APTI does is APTI complements all of the other organizations that have, made an effort into making some of these changes. AB 5 was a big issue for all of us. And it makes more sense when you go to Sacramento that you are one collective voice. instead of several. And that's basically what happened during AB5. So we decided, let's put all our heads together. Let's come together. Let's represent the profession as a whole. Let's have one voice there, in the sense of, you know, a recognized organization that is there specifically for the lobbying and advocating purposes, not anything else.
Yes, absolutely. And so, of course, people are going to be wondering whether APTI is, well, we know that it's a California-based organization which was created, prompted by issues in California, but is APTI only an organization with interest or that advocates for interpreters in California, or is there more to APTI?
Well, I would say that there's more to APTI because we are spreading our wings and we are reaching out to colleagues all over the nation to have a common voice. It's very challenging because there are different challenges in every state, depending on the dynamics of that particular state. California always seems to be the main hub, if you will, of legislation as it pertains especially to labor issues, because this state is very labor oriented. So whatever successes that we can achieve here can trickle into other states. Our goal is to bring those other colleagues from other states together with APTI so that we can make a collective effort across the board at a national level.
Now, as you have so aptly stated, APTI is meant to be a complement to existing organizations. And as I mentioned earlier, also, Esther, you are a member of a number of organizations in which you participate in advocacy efforts. Can you talk to us about APTI and its and where it fits in with other well-known national organizations such as NAGID, the ATA? How do you envision APTI, when it grows to be a larger organization, to continue that kind of complement?
Well, we are an alliance, and we purposely added the word alliance to our name, because it's not just about us, it's about everyone. We don't need to belong to exclusively one organization. For instance, the ATA represents translators. They also welcome interpreters as well. I attend their conferences. In fact, we had a table at the ATA conference this past October, I think, here in Los Angeles. And we were very well received. So there is a need. The ATA supplies a need. They support their interpreters and translators. They have a mission to educate their members, to provide tools for the membership and for the examination, the certification for translators. The same with NAGID. NAGID is these organizations. I belong to the ATA for 20 years now, and with NAGID for about 13 years. I'm very close to NAGID because I believe that they give so much to the judiciary interpreters, and I am a court interpreter, so whatever they provide, it's helpful. I use their position papers, and I've actually testified in court using their position papers. So it's just a great organization. So we're not competing with these wonderful organizations that provide so much to the profession. We are here with a different mission. We want their members to join us. We want institutional members. The ATA, NAGID, all these organizations can be supportive by becoming institutional members. If they want to, it's up to them to decide, of course, but we're open to discussions. In fact, we have so many NAGID members that believe in our mission and our goal and what we want to accomplish. And it just makes me feel really, really good because I see APTI as a complementary service and not a competitive one.
And interpreters, I mean, whenever there's a gathering of 2 or more interpreters, there, the conversations usually go towards the usual topics, team interpreters getting work who don't have the appropriate license, the rates that interpreters might be getting paid, either from agencies or from what the clients, the work conditions. I mean, I could go on and on and on. And these seem to be the type of, would you agree that these seem to be also the type of subjects that interpreters need to be involved in? It's not just that all of a sudden there's a law that's coming down, in your legislature, which says, now all interpreters have to do X, Y, and Z. But, there's a lot of internal work left to be done in our industry. What do you tell interpreters in terms of, I'll start with Esther and then move on to Angie. What do you tell interpreters when they meet you and they ask you why you're are so involved? Why do interpreters need to advocate? What are they advocating for? For whom? For what? How do you present the importance of this to them?
Freelance interpreters are self-employed individuals. We are running our own business. So who advocates for us if it's not yourself? So it is our job, it is our duty to do the right thing on behalf of the profession. If you think you're doing well, I consider myself a very successful interpreter, and I'm doing well. I could just say, oh, let somebody else do this job. But no, I've been so fortunate. I've been so blessed by the work that I've done that I want to leave this profession in the perfect conditions for future interpreters. So I tell them, the first thing, I mentor a lot of interpreters simply because I'm available. I'm in social media. I get calls, I get texts, I get, questions all the time. And I happily answer each and every one of the questions regarding that. What the pay is, bad agencies that don't pay, all those things if you belong to organizations, to associations, you can learn from others. You can learn how to speak for yourself, how to advocate for yourself at that lower level. That should be pretty basic, actually. But most of us come into the profession not knowing this, okay? We just get excited to be certified and to be working. The first thing you want to do is work with lots of agencies, and there's many tools. APTI actually helps with that as well. So we offer a lot of continuing education classes so interpreters can have the right tools to become professionals. Professional just doesn't define you by a certification. I mean, that's not the definition of profession. A profession involves knowing how to contact your clients, how to act professional. Your demeanor speaks for itself. All those things you learn from organizations and associations. And that's what I try to encourage interpreters. You're new in the profession. How many associations have you joined? And that's what I tell them. I feel very, very proud of myself or APTI's goal, because when we said that we were going to go to the ATA, we had like 10 or 15 APTI members there. And that was their first time attending the ATA conference. So you see, and they were so excited. They gave me a lot of energy and support, and it was very palpable, their excitement about it.
Wow. That's wonderful, because now it's kind of like a cross-pollination of interpreters from your organization being introduced to the ATA, and also introducing interpreters and translators from the ATA to your organization. What about you, Angie? I mean, you are an avid advocate. Seems to be your passion. You've taken it to the next level, honestly, where a lot of interpreters have not. You were responsible, as we said earlier, for ensuring that interpreters had to identify themselves with their proper credentials. Tell us about that, and also tell us how you approach this issue of advocacy when people approach you to find out what it is you're doing and why you're interested in it.
Well, what kind of got me started was the fact that, well, first of all, for me personally, it was a very much of an uphill battle, if you will, to become certified, court certified. Even though I grew up in a bilingual home, it was still a struggle. So the day I got my certification was one of the proudest days ever, because I accomplished a goal that I had been working on for quite some time. So once I became court certified, I felt very empowered. I felt very strong, like this is my profession and I'm going to defend it. And a lot of the issues were that a lot of the folks that use us, like attorneys, court reporters, the courts, etc., really didn't know much about what it was that we had to do in order to become interpreters. They just thought, oh, well, you're just bilingual. You can just come in and we'll do the family and friends plan and you'll interpret for the person who needs the interpreter. And it's not that at all. So when I started to notice how many, and it's nothing against individuals who aspire to be interpreters, but if you're not court certified, you really should not be interpreting in these kinds of legal settings where, everybody's on the line with whatever words come out of your mouth, and you should be prepared. And so I noticed that when you go to a deposition, the attorney's bar number's on the record, the court reporter's CSR number is on the record, but no record of the interpreter except Sancho Panza, oath on file. So there's no way of really verifying who you are, right? I could say, hi, my name's Esther Hermida, and this is my certification number, and they would believe me. So I went to the Judicial Council back in 2003, and I spoke to them about the issue, and I'll never forget, one of the Chief Justices asked me, so how would you solve this problem, Miss Birchfield? It's quite simple, Your Honor. All we have to do is give our name, state our certification, and a story. So they were like, oh, okay, sounds good. So that's where the effort began. I was able to convince at the time the union, CFI, that we needed to advocate for this and lobby for it. And with their help, I was able to help to get this law passed. And it was really amazing the day that it did pass, because it was the same day that my daughter was at the Annapolis trying to see if she might get in, and I started crying, and my daughter thought I was crying for her, and I said, no, honey, I'm crying because this bill passed and was signed by the governor.
So did she get into Annapolis?
She did not, and but she's okay. She's doing something completely different now, but nonetheless, it was a very important day to me. And it still to this day worries me, because even though we passed that law, unbeknownst to me, it was happening in the criminal courts, which I thought, how could that be? But it has improved, but it's still not perfect. And I think that a lot of our colleagues many times don't have that self-confidence in them to stand up for themselves and say, no, these are my protocols, these are my standards, these are my rates. And you have to, be very adamant about it, not in a disrespectful way, but we're professionals. And so we need to behave that way. One of the things I will add as well is that one thing that AB 5 did do is that it forced interpreters to be professionals. Many of them did not have business licenses. They didn't have TIN numbers instead of using their social security number. Many of the things that you would need in order to run a business. So now it's the improvement is tremendous and everyone is starting to get it. I'm still concerned about languages of lesser diffusion, and I'm still concerned about medically certified interpreters. We really need to empower them. We need to involve them in this trailblazing effort that we are making.
So what kind of everyday actions do you encourage interpreters to take, whether they be court interpreters or medical interpreters? What suggestions do you have for them, short of, lobbying? Because of course, you have so clearly explained how intimidating and complicated that process can be. So what can each of us do in our daily practice that can help us advocate for the profession as a whole? Why don't you start, Angie, and then Esther, you can pick up on that, please.
Well, it's funny because about 10 years ago, when I would go to any kind of medical appointment, the very friendly, and I'm being sarcastic, the very friendly person that you check in with at the counter would always say, "Do you have your certification badge? I need a photocopy." And I thought, this is perfect. They're looking at my badge. They're confirming it's me. They're taking a photocopy. End of story. And then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened, but they stopped doing that. And I think one of the very simple things that I tell my colleagues in the medical field, make sure that you pull that badge out and you insist upon them taking a photocopy of it. In fact, I worked on a bill through the legislature where in order for the companies to get paid, they have to provide proof that they use a certified interpreter. So I don't understand why this is happening, but what I encourage our colleagues to do is, again, show their badges, insist on them being part of the record for the medical event that they're interpreting for, to, stick together as much as they possibly can without breaching antitrust laws, and, just trying to stay consistent with each other in the field, helping each other out, trying to be consistent about, the biggest issue is the rates. And the biggest issue, especially for medical, is the non-certs. You got to fight every day for that. And it takes a village. And that's what we're trying to establish, especially in that field, that sector.
Well, I think that's a fabulous suggestion, Angie. I had not thought about that. I too am a certified healthcare interpreter, but had not thought about that. I always carry my badge, of course, but are not ever asked for it to become part of, let's say, the record, as I am with court interpretation. What about you, Esther? What other kinds of grassroots suggestions do you have for interpreters?
Find your tribe, get together with them, exchange ideas, suggestions. There's always one more experience than the next. We talk about that already in social media groups. We have WhatsApp groups where somebody says, "Hey, I had this issue, this happened. How would you have resolved it?" Right? So that's how interpreters learn. The badge point is super important. Angie, when she failed to mention, when she talked to the judge about, saying your name, your court certification, she failed to mention that you're supposed to show your badge. And so therefore we all have badges, right? I don't wear mine. I just keep it in my purse. You can pull it out, show it to if you're at a deposition, just show it to everyone. And they sort of expect that, by the way. They're now asking, do you have your badge, Miss Interpreter? So that's how you start a trend. If you're certified, what makes you, if you're good, that's because you work at it, right? You're already certified. Show it off. And it's not so much about showing it off. It's got to be part of the record. Okay. So to protect the profession, to protect us, and to protect everyone else. We're having a hard time trying to get the medical interpreters to see the same thing that we've been doing for years as court interpreters. They are mostly worried, and I understand the pay is an issue for them, trying to get paid, and agencies using non-certified medical interpreters over certified medical interpreters just to save a few bucks is totally unfair. And so they're frustrated. That's why we need medical interpreters, and that's why we represent medical certified interpreters, court interpreters. We even, if you're a conference interpreter, you have a degree, you can prove that you have a history, you can become a member of APTI. There's many ways to join APTI. So in certification for us is important because we offer services to people who need that guarantee that we are doing the right thing. And that's why certification is important. And we're going to do more work on that, that I'm sure, Angie will talk about why it's important that we move on and try to encourage interpreters, but we need their support, actually. I mean, what good is an organization if you don't have members, or if the members are afraid to join? There's a lot to learn from us. We can share. We're very open about sharing information.
Now, you guys recently had your annual meeting, and I was fortunate enough to attend and listen to, all of the accomplishments that you have been able to reach during these last 2 years. And towards the end, you announced a new campaign. Angie, talk to us about this, because this is something that is actually near and dear to my heart, because it completely elevates the status of the interpreter to the status of the professionals that we are. I mean, I figure if my hairdresser and my nail tech need to have a license, then why shouldn't an interpreter who is really either dealing with issues of life, death, and liberty? So Angie, tell us what APTI's new campaign is all about.
Well, going back to the court reporters, once again, I noticed that they're kind of similar to us in the sense that they have to literally speak another language in order to transcribe. So I noticed that they don't have any issues within their profession of, the use of non-certs, that being treated as professionals. I mean, even in a court setting, you will see the judge will say, "So how's the court reporter doing?" And that's it. They don't ever say, "How's the interpreter doing?" It's like, wait a minute. I feel like Rodney Dangerfield with, I need some respect here. So, so we, looked into the possibility of becoming licensed and what it would entail for us to be able to achieve that. So we met and conferred with one of the Consumer Affairs Department representatives of the court reporters, so that she could give us some feedback on how they accomplished their goal. And many of the things that were mentioned were very important to us. And the first and most important of them all was what the requirements would be to become a licensed interpreter. And that would include your certification, your training, etc. One of the biggest concerns going on in California right now in the judicial system is that there appears to be a shortage of interpreters. So they're trying to kind of reshuffle how the whole process works by lowering the bar for interpreters. And that's just unacceptable. We cannot allow that to happen. And so if we can establish its licensure in California right now, we would be able to run our profession. We be the ones that make the decisions on how our profession is run. We are at a higher level that we deserve to be at with our peers. And we, how can I say this? We would be able to regulate the language service providers. They would have to go through a vetting process in order to be able to pay to be part of the licensing plan for California as quote unquote approved vendors, if you will, that would be able to contract with interpreters. And the number one rule would be that they would have to the law would require them to only use certified interpreters. And what do we mean by certified? We talk about federally certified, California state certified, administrative hearing, and medical interpreters. If it's a language of lesser diffusion that has no certification, then we would have to create a sort of vetting process so that we are we are establishing some sort of, we're still not there yet, but to include everyone, so that way everybody is being treated equally as a certified interpreter would be.
So go ahead, Esther. Tell us your take on this.
Yes, and I agree. All of this has to be accomplished through the legislation. Through we are moving and exploring and very confident that this can be done. And this is where we need numbers. We understand that we're going to get some pushback, but ultimately this is for the good of the profession. Creating licensing, maybe a board, we're exploring this in a very serious matter and giving it our all. We know that this is much needed for the profession, not just in California, nationwide.
So what kind of pushback do you anticipate, and how and how would you address it in order to overcome it?
Okay, so from the interpreters, not much. Maybe some people may complain about the fees that you have to pay, but those fees would not be coming to APTI or anyone. It would just go to the state because they need to oversee whatever, to oversee the program or what have you. But from the language service companies, I'm not saying, they may be complaining. It's like, no, we can't find certified interpreters to cover every single instance or every single event. There may be some pushback on that. However, we know that if anybody, just like Angie, like I did, and like you did, Maria, we wanted to be certified. By golly, we did it. So everyone out there who is working as an interpreter, who is not certified, please get certified. Take the steps. There are pathways to certification if it's available in your language combination. We do not we encourage, in fact, anybody that wants to know how to get started as an interpreter can contact APTI, or in fact, any interpreter will gladly tell you where to start. And that's evident by all the posts that you read on social media. How do I get started in this profession? So there is a pathway. If it were that difficult, maybe we didn't have to do this, but it's simple enough. And I am sure we're going to have the ability to probably train people. There's plenty of training available for people or language service companies that may not accept this. But this profession is not about language service companies. It's about us. We're the subject matter experts. We are the ones that we are going to. They are providing a need. Fine. I can't get into major companies because they contract with language service companies who have major insurance and they have plenty of interpreters throughout the country. So they provide a service to the community, the business community. But ultimately, it's about us. It's about we, the ones who offer that service, to protect the community and the people who really deserve certified interpreters by their side.
Now, I find it interesting that we started earlier in this program talking about AB5 and how you created a coalition of interpreters who were already working independently to try and advocate for their profession, for their interests. And then as a result, or one of the byproducts, APTI came to being in order to kind of take advantage of everybody's interests and needs, and really be more efficient in how advocacy is done, whether it's self-advocacy or whether it is advocacy to a third-party legislature through lobbying, or advocacy in other ways. And so now here we are again, in that, APTI is, focusing on this major campaign to, essentially, bring interpreting into its next level in California. But at the same time, this is something that interpreters all over the United States could benefit from if they actually work together, not just with each other, but with APTI, or so it's just interesting to me how there's always more and more levels, and to the importance of advocacy and where we need to go in this profession. So how would you work with other states? How would you work with, I'm guessing that you have members that are not from, not just from California. So you have members from other parts of the country, because the mission is so broad, and but at the same time, it's so overarchingly important to every interpreter, regardless of what state you're in.
Personally, through APTI, I've been in communication with colleagues from several different states. Some have asked not to disclose who they are because they're afraid that their courts will catch wind and that they will suffer from it. But basically what we have done so far has been we've been able to encourage, empower, and give our knowledge as to how we've done things so that they could start the ball rolling on their end as it pertains to the standards and protocol, the rates, the hours, etc. Because a lot of folks don't understand that. Well, they do and they don't, but many language service providers look to the structure that the courts have, and so they want to mimic that in the private sector. And so we have to more or less explain to our colleagues, this isn't, doesn't necessarily have to be the way you go. You have to do it the way that you feel comfortable with in your own location, wherever you're at. And the most important thing of all, though, however, is to come together. And again, it takes a village. If everyone is communicating the same thing over and over and over and over, these entities are going to finally say, okay, well, we give up. They're going to have to run the show, so to speak. It's very interesting. There are certain language pairs that are like that. They're very close-knit, tied together, same standards, same protocol. And it's important to be consistent with one another. It's very difficult to do because we're independent contractors. So what does that mean? We work independently. We don't usually work in groups with other people, right? When we go to do our interpreting sessions, it's on occasion that you will run into a colleague here and there. So there's really a lot of distancing there. And so this is a way to bring everyone together so that they can gain knowledge regardless of where they are. If they're in, a little speck corner in Texas or wherever, what we're trying to do is encourage, empower, and educate our colleagues.
What kind of information regarding getting involved in advocacy, again, for themselves, for the profession, can interpreters find on the APTI website?
We, on our website, there's why we exist. We're updating pages every so often to provide more information to the public. But in the presentation we just had recently, we posted a link to all of our members, so how they can find their legislator at the local. I don't have the link with me. I'm sorry. I would have given it to you gladly, but how to find your local legislator at the local and national level and introduce yourself to them. So I understand most associations do the same thing. They advocate. They have an advocacy committee. So we're not new. This is not new, right? Most interpreters involved in organizations learn how to do that. APTI wants to go a step further by making sure that interpreters contact their legislators, introduce themselves. And that's what you do. This is how you build connections and you build relationships. Our lobbyist knows how to do that very well. Lobbyists do generally, they work the room, as they say. Well, interpreters can do the same thing. Our legislators, and I've learned this from experience, my own senator, I visited her. I didn't talk to her right away. I talked to her aide. And then there was an open house for her constituents. And I went there and she was there and I got to talk to her. And I talked to her about not APTI, our efforts, because APTI was not around then. But I was talking to her about, hey, I'm self-employed. I live in your district. I'm being hurt by this. And she says, oh, I know construction workers are in the same position. And she mentioned interpreters and translators before the Senate and begging for a yes vote on 2257. So we can do a lot and they love it. We can actually contact our legislators or representatives, right? And just offer our services or say, hey, I live in your district. If you ever have an event where you can use my assistance, I'll gladly help, right? And by the way, I belong to APTI, which is, we're in Sacramento or we're here. And so we want our members to be advocates. Oh, and I can probably say that most of our members are definitely very savvy. Interpreters generally are. So all you just have to do is just give them the tools, a little push, and they know what to do. And if anybody contacts us, and we have had interpreters from other states contacting us, we definitely can provide those same tools to them. We encourage people to join APTI. That's important for us because our membership is what pays for our lobbyist. Our numbers are low. We're working on building up the membership so we can continue with our mission. And our mission is for the interpreters and translators. It's for the profession. None of us are really getting a benefit. In fact, we're working really, really hard to get everyone. So if they can show their appreciation, join APTI, join or just mention us and support us. That would be wonderful.
And of course, join the associations and the organizations that are in your state, that are in your region, that are also there, and see if there's any way that by participating in leadership positions, you can create and reach out and create alliances between APTI and between your organization and other organizations, bringing organizations and people together. Angie, what do you feel is going to be your biggest challenge with this new endeavor that APTI has announced? And how hopeful are you that over time you will prevail?
Well, it's all about money. So in order for us to get this bill passed, it's going to involve some of the state budget. Unfortunately, California right now is in a $29 billion deficit. So I think the only impediment really that we may encounter will be that issue. I really don't think that our legislators are opposed to what we're asking. Our lobbyist was very clever in what he says he does, which is strategic planning. And we pretty much have had communications with every legislator that was out there that we could have, have meetings with. And no one seemed to be against it. They all felt it, and they all agreed we need oversight. We need that licensure. So I don't foresee anything too difficult for us to be able to achieve our goal. But it may take a while, and we'll see how it goes. But the only snafu I see right now is just that issue with the budget, but that's about it, because it has to go through appropriations in order to move on. So we'll do our strategy, and we'll see how it goes.
Well, I'm definitely hoping that you are successful in your endeavors, so you can be used, share your experience and your expertise with other interpreters in other states that may be interested in following suit. I certainly hope that you'll come back to Subject to Interpretation and give us another update. Do you have any parting words on first Esther and then Angie to our viewers and our listeners before we go?
I just need to say that if you are a professional interpreter working in court, whether you're staff or not, if you work in the private sector, you should be concerned about your profession. Every little thing that you do as an individual affects the whole. And so be a participant, be part of it, and you will find so much joy when you help others.
My thing will be empowerment. You need to be empowered and understand the importance of who you are and what you do and what you provide. I oftentimes will start, when I speak to an organization, I will say, my name is Angie Birchfield. I am a gang member. I'm a judge. I'm an attorney. I'm an expert witness, and I have to have all this vocabulary on the tip of my tongue in another language. That's empowerment. That's what keeps me going every day. And that's what I would like to see all my colleagues do. And we need you. We need you. Please come to us.
Well, Esther and Angie, Esther Hermida and Angie Birchfield, thank you so much for joining us here today on Subject to Interpretation. We've been talking about advocacy, it's kissing, cussing, lobbying, as well as the organization, the American Alliance of Professional Interpreters and professional translators and interpreters, APTI, which is embarking on a very interesting project in the professionalization and the licensure of interpreters in the state of California. Thank you to you both for being here. And thank you so much to our viewers for joining us today. Please share your comments with us on this platform or email us at podcast@delamorainstitute.com. And if you're listening to us, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our weekly episodes. Never stop learning. Take care.